In this video, we're going to turn this broken down bus into a luxurious, iconic home, one unlike anything you've ever seen before or will ever see again. This project took 6 full months of work, so I really hope you like it. They bought this bus from a guy on Facebook who has a strange hobby, collecting old vehicles. Honestly, the bus was in terrible condition. It needed an unbelievable amount of work. Every corner was sticky with years of dirt and dust, and it had to be cleaned from the inside out. So they grabbed this big scraper and got to work, removing all the old furniture. Yes, the bus was in an absolutely disastrous state. Spiders, wasps, cockroaches, and even a colony of termites had built themselves quite a respectable settlement in there. It didn't look reassuring at all. Once they finished the demolition phase, they started planning the build, and that's when the real work began. The first thing they did was wash the bus thoroughly. Then they bought wood to build the floor and added this insulating foam across the entire bus, covering it afterward with wooden panels. They decided to leave the metal ceiling as it was and just paint it white to save time and money. But unfortunately, greed doesn't pay off. They used the wrong spray gun for the paint, and as a result, the ceiling turned out a mess with paint drips running everywhere. That mistake cost them $200 for nothing. The next day, they tried to fix the disaster by sanding it down, but suddenly it started raining. That's when they discovered another disaster. The bus roof was leaking from every possible spot. The only solution was to dismantle the old roof completely and rebuild it from scratch. So they removed the old metal roof, climbed up, and started sealing every hole that had been letting in water. The bus was a 1991 model, so honestly, they should have done this from the start and saved themselves all that time and frustration. The good thing is, the new roof ended up looking much better than the old one, so in the end, all that effort was really worth it. Now they began working on the interior finishing. Since Shai was busy with another project, it was Kobe who did all the work on his own.
He began dividing the bus into sections, and the plan was quite simple. At the very end of the bus, there would be a private bedroom with a large bed. That's the part Kobe was working on at the moment, and the shape was already starting to take form. As for the rest of the bus, this area would serve as the living room or lounge space. Then they needed to install a full bathroom with a toilet, sink, and shower. Finally, the kitchen would be on the opposite side, directly facing the bathroom. Of course, those old bus doors had to go. They were completely useless. So they decided to remove them entirely. If you're going to sleep in a converted bus, safety is a must. That's why they decided to install a proper door instead of the flimsy bus door that offered no protection. They happened to find one online for a great price, a lucky deal. They also needed a full water system for the bus, which required 3 tanks. The white tank for fresh water to supply the sinks and shower, the gray tank for water draining from the sinks, and the black tank for waste. Underneath the bus, Shai was working on installing the black tank directly below the bathroom. Since a full tank could weigh more than 300 pounds, it needed a strong support base capable of handling that weight safely. Then came the day every builder dreads, insulation day. The bus originally had only a 1-inch layer of insulation behind the metal panels, which was definitely not enough, so they had to add more layers to keep the interior warm and comfortable. Kobe worked on insulating all the bus walls, while Shai installed the white tank, the fresh water tank, underneath. After 5.5 hours of non-stop work under the bus, Shai was completely exhausted, while above, Kobe had started attaching the dry wood panels around the bus. The frame was then sealed off with drywall panels, getting everything ready for the next stage, building the bathroom. The first step was constructing the floor and walls entirely out of wooden panels.
After that, Kobe covered the entire bathroom with a waterproofing layer to protect the walls from any future mold or leaks. From the very beginning, the goal was to make the bathroom elegant and shiny, which is why they chose these plastic tiles with a marble pattern to give the space a luxurious look. For the shower area, they wanted something that stood out, so they used an exposed brick design to make it visually distinct from the rest of the bathroom, especially since the same style would later be applied to the kitchen as well. This would create a consistent and harmonious design throughout the entire bus. Since the floor was designed specifically for water drainage, they added an extra waterproofing layer to ensure the bathroom would stay in top condition for as long as possible. Then, once the drain was installed, they sealed the entire floor. At this point, the bathroom was temporarily complete, and the focus shifted to a new task, the generator box. One of the main goals for this bus was to have a constant power supply anywhere, whether it was moving or parked. To achieve that, they designed a special compartment at the back for the generator. But there was a problem. When they covered the generator with wood, it looked terrible, and the wood wasn't waterproof either. So they came up with a brilliant solution, using the metal sheets that had been removed from the old bus roof and turning them into a metallic cover for the generator box. They cut and bent the metal to fit the box perfectly, which made it both sturdy and stylish. Then they built a waterproof door for the compartment to protect the generator from the weather. When they tested it for the first time, it worked perfectly. The bus lit up completely, which boosted their excitement for the next phase. Next, they started working on the upper sleeping area. They laid down the carpet across the entire floor and added a metal safety rail to prevent anyone from falling while sleeping. The goal was to provide enough space for 4 people to sleep comfortably, making the most out of the available space in a smart and efficient way.
That's why they decided to dedicate the space under the main bed for storage, where they also installed the water heater and pump to make future access easier. They also designed a rear compartment, similar to a car trunk, which could be accessed from outside the bus. This storage box worked like a secure locker with a lock, making storage more practical and efficient. Afterward, they covered the entire area with wood and moved back to the upper level, where they finished the wall with an exposed brick style. Up front was the preliminary design for the kitchen cabinets, so they began working on bringing that design to life. But after spending quite some time building and assembling the cabinet frames, they were shocked by what they saw. The cabinets had been built to standard household dimensions, which made them way too big for the limited bus space. They only had one solution: resize the cabinets to fit the bus properly. At the same time, they removed an unnecessary wooden pillar that was getting in the way of the layout. Once the adjustments were done, they added this beautiful marble countertop on top. Originally, the sink installation was supposed to take 3 weeks, but things went faster than expected, and they managed to install it the same day. Now, the focus shifted to the living area. Since the bus was only 20 feet long, there wasn't enough room for a traditional sofa. The solution was to build 2 benches facing each other instead. Then they finished the left wall with exposed brick as well, giving the entire bus a unified and elegant look. The next day, Shai started working on the front of the bus. It was a challenge because he had to do everything alone, but he pulled it off, cutting and installing the dashboard entirely by himself. Shortly after, the new seat arrived and it looked amazing. But there was a problem. The seat was way too big. When he tried to install it, he realized it was too tall and made the space feel cramped. The issue was that when they built the wooden partition earlier, they hadn't accounted for a seat of this size. To fix it, they had no choice but to move the seat slightly backward.
They started by removing a small section of the wall, and after trying again, they found that the space fit perfectly. Thankfully, the problem was solved successfully. Meanwhile, Shai was working on building the bus doors. At first, he had planned to give them a rough wooden finish, but as he worked, he decided to smooth them out to give them a more modern look that matched the overall design of the bus. Everything seemed to be going well, but not for long. Shai noticed that the doors looked uneven and inconsistent because they were made from low-quality wood pieces. He didn't like that at all, so he and Kobe took the doors apart and decided to rebuild them from scratch. After 2 days of hard work, the result was stunning. The doors came out sleek and elegant, and every bit of effort was worth it. He was really proud of how they turned out. Before moving on to the rest of the interior work, it was time to install the air conditioning system. The AC unit had two parts, an indoor unit and an outdoor unit. But there was a new problem. If they installed the outdoor unit on the side of the bus, it would completely ruin the bus's appearance. So Kobe decided to relocate it underneath the bus instead. He built a strong metal base beneath the bus and securely placed the unit inside it. This solution made the system much more practical while keeping the bus's exterior stylish and clean. As for the indoor unit, it was supposed to be mounted on this wall, but that wall had drywall panels attached with strong adhesive, which made Kobe's job much harder when removing them. The two units, indoor and outdoor, needed to be connected by copper pipes, so to install them properly, Kobe had to remove a large section of the wall to run the pipes from underneath the bus up to the interior unit. Once that was done, he started working on the exterior of the bus. The windows had to be sealed, so they used metal sheets to cover them completely, as well as the lower side panels of the bus. The result was excellent. After finishing all the exterior modifications, it was finally time to paint the bus. This was the last time the bus would appear in its old, worn-out state before being completely transformed. The first step was preparing the surface, stripping off the old paint, and then they began spraying the entire bus in a deep, sleek black color.
The result was stunning. The bus now looked elegant and powerful. But unfortunately, and yes, I know I've said unfortunately a lot in this video, there was a small problem. See that dent up front? A tree trunk had fallen on the bus, causing that big dent you're looking at now. They tried to fix it using foam, and at first it looked fine, until they left it out in the sun. That's when all the foam started to melt and deform, just like you can see here. They hadn't really thought about it before, but there's actually a reason why most RVs and camper vans are painted white. The color reflects sunlight. Black, on the other hand, absorbs it. So because they had painted the bus black, the interior became extremely hot, and even the air conditioner couldn't keep up. Now they had no choice but to fix that dent again and repaint the entire bus. They began by removing the layer of foam they had applied earlier, which turned out to be exhausting work. Kobe and Shai spent long hours sanding and scraping, wasting both time and money. They had already spent around $300 on the foam, filler, and sanding materials, all for nothing. But after stripping everything off, they came up with a much better solution than filling the gap with foam again. The idea was simple. Make a metal cover to reinforce and conceal the damaged area. And once again, they used the leftover metal sheets from the bus roof to repair the section. After covering the entire dent with metal, the front finally looks solid again. Unfortunately, they had planned a beach trip in just 4 days, a trip they were really looking forward to. But they hadn't anticipated having to repaint the bus twice. Now they had to choose a new color. They didn't want to go back to white, so Shai picked his favorite shade, this beautiful deep blue. Once they mixed the paint perfectly, they started repainting the entire bus. At that point, there were only 3 days left before the trip, and their father grabbed a brush and decided to help by painting the whole bus himself. His work was impressive, and with just 2 days remaining, the entire family was still hard at work finishing countless details inside the bus. Everyone gave their absolute best to get it done in time. Now there was only 1 day left, and they had to finish painting the entire bus. They stayed up all night applying the final coats of paint. Honestly, by the end, they were really happy that the black color hadn't worked out, because the new blue looked so much better. I think it's safe to say the bus couldn't have looked any more perfect. Finally, it was time for their long-awaited trip. The last thing they did was give the bus a proper wash, then they hit the road. They ended up having the best vacation they'd ever had, enjoying every moment inside the newly transformed bus. And that's it. Tell me, what kind of challenges would you like to see next? Thanks so much for all your support.